Okay, good morning, everybody. Can I have an attention, please? We start our panel. So the name of the panel is the long-term needs for the Ukraine's health sector. I have a great pleasure and an honor to introduce and welcome on stage Jake Wheeler, who represents Amicare, and Krzysztof Anuszewski, who represents RescueNet and Rescue Plus, Alpha Rescue, and Adrian Godecki, that is a president and founder of Healthcare Education Institute in Katowice. And next, it's Rachel Rowe, that is regional director for grants contracts in Project Hope in Ukraine, and Joanna Józefiak, and president of Mediciner International Healthcare Association. And next is Svitlana Muzyczenko, founder and an executive director, Ukraine Brokers Without Borders. Welcome. And last but not least, our Deputy Ministry of Health of Ukraine for European Integration Ministry of Health of Ukraine. It's a long name. Welcome, Oleksiy Yaramenko. Okay. We have a very difficult topic, we have difficult subject, how to plan in long term something that is not easy to plan even in the normal circumstances. And I think that is it will be like a good starting point to start with the presentation that was prepared for our panel. So can I ask Oleksiy to start the presentation, and then we will follow some questions and have some discussion. The microphones are on the tables.
Thank you for introducing. Today, I will speak about long-term needs on Ukrainian health system and our strategy. And it's really hard talk during the war and current status and preparation, winter preparation and all of these horrible things that happen daily. But there is a time parallel we should be prepared when we will win the war, and we need to quickly implement lots of things. And today I will present our strategy and health recovery plan, our priority and milestones. But before we'll switch to the long-term needs in our strategy, I want to recall you that health reform that was started in 2015 is one of the key reform in for the last 5 years in Ukraine. There are lots of resources was spent to achieve incredible results. Actually, this was transferring from Soviet Union system to European standards. The key component was created like National Strategic Purchaser of Medical Service, National Health Service of Ukraine, other key organizations like Public Health Center, Medical Procurement Agency, SOE Health, and other institutions that now are able to work during this war. And without this preparation, we cannot even imagine how we can deal with it. So this allows us, all the reform that's happening allows us now to keep strong and provide medicines to our people. Just before the war, actually in the end of February, we finished with the National International Organization National Health Strategy 2030, and it should be the key document for the next 8 years. Of course, now we take a pause and not implementing it because we have other priority in the current situation. But the strategy and the vision how the health system should look like in the next decade we got. And war will not change this dramatically because we see Ukraine as a European country of European community with European standards. And we want to bring health services to all population as better quality and free of charge. But current status for the starting from February 24th, we focusing on providing medicine, and I can highlight 5 key points. First of all, is medical care. We accept key services like trauma and surgery. We also focusing on the occupied territory to bring services back as soon as we got them. Also, we work with the EU countries to send our people in treatment abroad. Also, it's very important to give access to medicine. Russia destroyed, as you see, more than 500 pharmacies, and it's pretty challenges to deliver medicine on the occupied territory where it's everything destroyed. Also, we continue our financial reform and procure health services from the health provider, and government spent more than 100 billion hryvnia starting from the beginning of the year. We coordinate humanitarian support across the country. We developed our electronic system, My Data, to collect needs from the ground, to monthly and weekly provide requests to the all donors and disseminate donor support to the specific healthcare facilities that are really needed. It allows us not to duplicate and to focus our health, our donation and donor support. One more important thing, it's human resources, because without courage of our doctors and nurses, we are not able to provide services. That's why first, we increased salary by 30% comparing to the previous year, even during the war. And second, we see that we allow our doctors to migrate inside the country without any additional problems and provide services where they can physically fit. Again, as we have the occupied territory, we see that our doctors and nurses are going back in 1-2 weeks. Even sometimes we want to have a pause to establish all necessary security issues. But in fact, at minimum 29 medical workers was killed during this period. And it's data that we have officially. I'm afraid that the number is much bigger. Russia destroyed more than 1,157 objects of healthcare facilities. And it's a huge number that will be needed for reconstruction in our future programs. In the first months, in parallel, we start thinking strategically what should be our priority as government, and what should be the key points of investment in the future. So we, together with international national partners, developed part of national recovery plan on the health. And for now, we estimate from 15 up to 20 billion euro only to recover health services at the previous condition, how it was before the war. It's a huge number of cost. We think in the next 10-15 years, these resources will be able us to strengthen a health system. Our focus, it's a 9 key points. It's strengthening policies as an institution, because it allows us to continue reforming. Second is financial stability and to provide health care, universal health coverage to the population. Third, it's restoration and transformation of the healthcare network. Then specific health services like rehabilitation and mental health, the services caused by war. And the need, we wasn't prepared, no one was prepared for it So now mental health and rehabilitation is one of our key priority. Human resources, as always, will be in a key target and key point for us, because without doctors and nurses, it's impossible to provide services. E-health system, there are healthcare quality, pharmaceutical sector, is all things that we are planning. We have specific targeted action plan for each of these 9 blocks. And as other health recovery plans, health part also have 3 blocks. Current is resilience, it's provision of healthcare services during the war. And we don't know when it will be finished, but now we are stably providing services. We don't see very critical issue, and it's one of the successful outcome of the previous reform and our courage of our medical workers. Second step, it will be recovery. It will take up to 3 years. Of course, it's including restoration, building primary health care system, finding investment for developing hospital network. Priority, as I said, rehabilitation and mental health. Harmonization for European integration, it always will be priority for government. Digitalization and developing pharmaceutical area also. Last stage in modernization, and hopefully we will revise our health strategy goals and implement it, focusing on accelerating implementation universal health coverage, bringing investments, focusing on digitalization, on public health and other key priorities. There are lots of work, and we are looking for any partners who want to join and provide support. We are always happy and glad for any support. And together, hopefully sooner, we will celebrate the winning of this war. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay. It was a great background and good starting point, as I mentioned before. Can I have a question right now? Because it's obvious that you divide the Ukraine right now on this occupied part and not occupied, fully occupied. And what is the main urgent issue right now for the health system and service?
In my answer, I will split in two parts. First, it's a current priority, what is really needed right now. And it's preparations to be able to provide services during the full blackout.
Okay.
As we see, Russia targetedly destroyed our electricity system. And for health area, of course, it's a very critical time, because we want to be able to provide all critical services. Medical services. That's why providing generators, priority number 1 for the next period. It's a period starting from the months ago, but it's what we see. I want to say that system are ready and hospitals are equipped at minimum stages of capacity. So each hospital that have ICU rooms, like operational rooms, have at least 1 generator. And we can keep like minimum capacity, but it's not enough. For example, primary health care providers are almost not equipped with generators. Second issue, if the heating system will be destroyed and communication heating will be destroyed, the capacity of generators should be increased dramatically. So priority number 1 for the next month or 2 will be generator. Talking about the occupied territory, our priority is to bring services back. And with our international partners, we have actually clear algorithm how we are dealing with it. First, it's bring back primary health care. Second, bring back pharmacies, opening pharmacies and medicine. And then we are focusing to restore critical hospitals with operation rooms, with ICU rooms, and so on. What we see is what different from our, like from Syria or Afghanistan or other territories, that we don't need much mobile clinics because we have huge infrastructure that we could use, and what we need is equipment and people who are able to continue services. So 3 stages: primary health care, medicine and pharmacies, and third it's ICU and doctor specialized care bring to the occupied territory. What we see from the experience on the Kherson and Kharkov Oblast, about 2-3 weeks is pass, and the hospitals are operating in a pretty similar way that it was before the war. So everything happens very significantly fast. So there are no time to think lots of. We need to act, to move very fast and proactively. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so you deal on the daily basis with the main problems you have. You just give us an example. So power generators and primary care and specialist care is needed, and medicine. Okay, maybe I will address my next question to the Rachel row. You wrote to me, you told me that Project Hope direct work with the health sector is just mainly like involves hiring staff and setting up mobile medical units and supporting local hospitals. Can you tell us more about that? Because
Sure.
I think it's like interrelated to what Alexei just said.
Well, we are lucky enough to have unrestricted funding, so we can use it to do any activities that we need to do to support the health sector. So
Okay.
we started off setting up mobile medical units with the 6 main hospitals that we partner with in Ukraine. So they have vehicles, they have a doctor, they have a nurse and a driver, and they can drive out to visit patients that perhaps are not able to make it to the hospital. So this is very useful, actually. Everybody appreciates it.
Yes.
But now we are also buying generators because this is a need that was shared with us. But also, we are lucky we can respond to emergencies. We got a call from the hospital in Lviv. They were short of sutures. We are able to get them and to deliver. So
Okay.
as things come up, we are able to respond. I know not everybody has that kind of flexibility, but for an NGO like this one, we can.
Do you find any difficulties in funding funds and financing that kind of activity in Ukraine right now?
It's hard to compare the situation in Ukraine to other conflicts that I've been involved in, but there is a remarkable amount of support from around the world, to be honest. So people are donating, governments are donating, and everyone wants to help Ukraine.
Yeah, and you have like a great experience, because I've read that you have more than 20 years of experience working in a different part of the world and in many global organizations like UN and also American Agency for International Development, so you can compare it, and in your opinion, it's like a great support right now, and you deal with all the needs. That's good to hear. Okay, maybe second question, next question will be to Adrian. You deal with the rare diseases, and they are there without, is there a war or not? We have to deal on a daily basis with different diseases. And what problems patients with those diseases are facing right now in Ukraine?
Well, rare diseases are rare, and this is no surprise, but on the other hand, when it comes to statistics, around 2 to 2.5 million people in Ukraine suffer from rare diseases. So this is a significant part of the population. So, well, I run a foundation in Poland which helps people with rare diseases. We did different things before the war, but since the war started, we responded to the crisis and first of all started finding specialized therapies to people fleeing from Ukraine. I mean, usually those are therapies which are available maybe in one hospital in the whole country, something like this. So they are very specialized one. And also we started helping people who are in Ukraine. But first of all, I would like to underline that, as Minister said, they had great plans. And they even started implementing those plans also when it comes to rare diseases. They started implementing their own national plan for rare diseases, which contains patient registries, special reimbursement procedure for medicines, and even newborn screening on a bigger scale than it is now in Poland. So they really started to do great things before the war, but the war stopped it somehow. So first thing first, we need to support Ukraine as a country in implementing those things they started to do in the area of rare diseases, because they are good ones. I mean, they are really on the European level when it comes to its complexity and general development. But the war started, and the patients with rare diseases has very specific needs. In most cases, patients with rare diseases receive therapies which are life-saving. So they cannot be interrupted even for a minute. And well, it happened when it comes to war in Ukraine. So we as a foundation helped around 80 to 100 families to receive such specialized care in Poland and other European Union countries. But still there are patients in Ukraine. We are sending them medical supplies to the hospitals and so on, but they still need help, and they are often overlooked in the big picture of helping Ukrainian healthcare system. This is why I believe if there is anybody who is helping Ukraine by sending medical supplies, for example, the key thing is to ask both hospitals what do they need, and ask also patient organizations. And I don't think that you should ask every single patient organization of every single rare disease, because it's impossible. But ask umbrella organizations, patient alliances. Those are this kind of organizations. They are very well developed in Ukraine and then can be a real partner when it comes to cooperation for patients with rare diseases. So not only asking system itself, which is very important to ask specific hospitals and respond to the needs, not sending everything, but also ask patient organization, patient community, what do they need for their patients in Ukraine, which are treated, as I said, often with life-saving therapies. So now what we are concentrating now is to deliver those things to Ukrainian patients, also power generators, power stations to keep respirators working at home, oxygen concentrators, things like this. But in, let's say, a bit longer perspective, always ask about needs of those people.
Okay, so how do you get the information, not only through the cooperation with other organizations, but also to communicate with the government or the Ministry of Health? What is your channel of getting information?
Well, the key is to ask, because I saw many organizations who are just sending medical supplies that they have in stock, and it's not always help. But asking ministry, asking specific hospitals,
okay,
and in the end asking also patient alliances, at least to consult with patient organization, with the social side, which is very active in Ukraine by helping it, is the key in my opinion. I mean, ask also the patients what do they need, because they often cooperate with the ministry, they cooperate with hospitals, and they can provide the best information what their patients needs now. And if it's medicine, if it's a surgery, if it's some kind of device, and if it's needed, we can deliver it. But if it's not possible to deliver it, we can always, I mean, we as a social organization taking care of rare diseases in Europe, we can always move to these patients temporarily to European Union and to provide them with treatment. But the key is to get information.
Yeah, and that's what I heard, that's what I experienced, that's what I know, because I work as a volunteer in the Polish rescue organization. And what we discovered that at the beginning everybody wants to help, and the aim is not so target. I mean, like, you need to ask people what they need. So the reality in many cases just differs than what you think, and it's what's really it's needed. So it's good that your help, and even in this narrow subject, like rare disease, is targeted, patient target. Oriented, so then your help is really beneficial. And you told me before our panel that you started from the very beginning, because it was like 27th of February when you got the first patient. So we can see that it was really after the outbreak of the war.
Yes, the first patient was moved on the 27th of February for a bone marrow transplantation because the hospital in Kiev was closed and we need to do something. So we moved the family to Bydgoszcz. So yes, we started helping from the 27th of February, but before the war, humanitarian aid wasn't our main area, but I am happy that we could help anyway.
Yeah, thank you. I will go to Svetlana, because for me you are like extremely interesting person, because you are like a businesswoman. You create a startup in Brazil, and you stop your like say professional work there as a businesswoman, and you just move into Ukraine after the outbreak of war, just to start helping people there. And you founded Brokers Without Borders, and the organization that is working on urgent grassroots humanitarian projects. And what is actually needed right now in Ukraine, in your opinion?
What we see is the most important right now is that people have alternative power sources so that they can obtain medical services, so that they can keep their houses, apartments warm during the winter season. So in that regard, as a non-government organization, we focus on helping two parts of the population. We are focused on supporting medical facilities and provisioning them with the generators, with the boilers, with the heating devices and the blankets, with the number of international partners that are helping us to realize this mission. Some of them are here on the conference, including AmeriCares that is with us on that panel. The way we go about it, we source them abroad because they are, cannot be found anymore in Ukraine. The market is not elastic, and most of them already have to be brought from the neighboring countries. Our focus is to deliver them right now to the east and the south of Ukraine, to the recently deoccupied territories. So right now we're working almost with 45 hospitals across Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, Kherson, Mykolaiv, and we are delivering those power generators of varied sizes to them. This is met with the number of challenges, not only the funding challenges, but right now there is a challenge that is more important than the funding, and its ability to source them and actually deliver them to those territories. For example, Mykolaiv, who is heavily affected by the military combat. There are hospitals that require generators, but they are mined around. So it's extremely difficult to find a logistical solution, even if you have a generator, to deliver to them. We've delivered around 15 small generators to the hospitals in the deoccupied Kharkiv region. And we were so surprised when they were asking us for this relatively small generators. We didn't see how a hospital can be run off such a small piece of equipment. And they were explaining us, well, look, our infrastructure is damaged to the degree that we are entirely disconnected from the centralized power grid. So we literally need those mobile units that we can install in every separate building of the hospital so that we can maintain the basic functions of the hospital running, because guess what? All of their medical equipment was looted, right? So this is what Alexei was referring to, that we need to return to them the medical equipment they need to provide the services, because they don't have it anymore. It was all taken away by the Russian forces. So there is a realm of challenges that we face in helping them with those supplies, but it is our goal to continue doing this through the course of this winter. And naturally, we also already ask ourselves, what is it going to be like in the next winter? Are we going to be still dependent in a year from now on running the medical facilities on the power generators, or are we going to come up with some alternative models of how our medical system will be less reliant on these traditional hospitals? And this is a bit relevant to what Rachel was saying, and how the international non-government organizations and bring into Ukraine this concept of mobile clinics that are smaller, more agile, can move around the territory, and are bringing this innovation spirit to how the medical access to the services can be maintained in the war context.
Yeah, so maybe that's the answer, this mobile unit. Can you tell us more about the logistic? I mean, because you're all talking about the logistic. When we think about the health service and health system, we think about the hospitals, clinics, doctors sitting in the rooms and waiting for the patient. And now we have this health system panel, and we're talking about the logistic, about the electricity, generators, and very simple things that normally people think they are there, I mean, in hospitals and in clinics. So how do you manage to deliver those generators? You were talking to the eastern part and south part.
Right now, there isn't one way to accomplish in Ukraine. For every specific destination, you have to explore what the options are. The territories that were deoccupied a few months ago, you already can reach them by the National Delivery Service. They really go as far as it's possible probably right now. The territories that were more recently deoccupied, we oftentimes make the arrangements with the hospital that we will deliver it as close as it's possible, and then they would drive and pick up the equipment in the bordering city that has a better access. We oftentimes have to pay for prime delivery services so that the logistical provider assumes the risk to travel to the territory. So the answer is bespoke. There's no one answer to that right now.
Okay, thank you. That was very interesting. Because usually when you think about the war and the logistic is so problematic, people are thinking that if everything is destroyed, so you don't have transport there. And actually, you need to have this channel of communication and transport even in the occupied territories.
But the answer is also working with locals, because those people that live on those territories, they are moving aid in and out, and they would know the safe ways to transit to a certain city. And so this is paramount to have these connections in every oblast in Ukraine to figure out how can you reach those destinations fast.
Okay. I will go to you, Jake, okay, if I may, because you represent Amicers. So for your organization's slogan is that Amicers is equal to health, and you believe that everybody deserves, like basic healthcare everywhere, every time. And I've read on your website that, healthcare is like a human, law and human right. And because you established a quick response team in Poland after the outbreak of Ukraine war in Ukraine. So what did you achieve? What have you achieved for the last 10 months? What cooperation you have in Ukraine and also in Poland and other countries that cooperates with you?
Great, thank you, yeah. Well, Americares is a health-focused development and relief organization that responds to over 30 humanitarian crises and natural disasters worldwide. And to kind of echo a refrain here about working with local partners, we do not directly implement. We're a donor, and we work through nearly 50 organizations. We've supplied over 280 tons of medicines and medical supplies to organizations providing TB medications in clinics, to grants supporting crisis counselors for Ukraine's largest suicide prevention hotline, And so our goal is to improve access to health services, improve access to medicines. And right now, we're very fortunate to work with nearly 50 organizations doing that all throughout Ukraine, as well as organizations in Poland, Romania, and Slovakia. And I think for us, it's really important to remember local organizations that Adrian mentioned we can listen to, that know the populations in those areas the best, they know the needs the best. And Alexei's presentation had a really, really good point about access to medicines in deoccupied or occupied territories. And so we have a great partner, for instance, Source of Revival, that's able to work. They're very lean, they're community rooted, they're smaller, but they're able to reach those most vulnerable populations and either through procuring medicines locally in the local market or those specialty medicines that we have access to through our supply chain. So that kind of represents the comprehensive approach to partnership that we have here.
Okay, so what is in your opinion, of course, the biggest achievement you managed to do it like during the last 10 months? Because you all repeat like medicine, generators, and other stuff. So what is?
Yeah, it's tough because we have so many great partners. Obviously, Brokers Without Borders is one of them. We've supplied over $50 million in valued goods, and again, $3 million in grants to organizations. The generator project right now, I think, is something that is meeting a very important need. And AmeriCare's approach is in line with what Alexei had outlined in his presentation. It's understanding the health system before the war, understanding the impact of the war on the health system, and then helping to complement those services that already exist, and where they don't, help fill that gap. And I think with the generators, we're focusing with Brokers Without Borders, with some of these other partners, on hospitals in areas that, to coin Svetlana's term, are stronghold hospitals. They serve a function within the health system. They serve a high concentration of IDPs, and they're maybe close to contact lines, but maybe have a lower risk of being attacked, so that there's essentially a level of safety there for people to receive those services. And so, those generators are powering COVID wards, they're powering surgical departments, they're powering maternity hospitals. So for us, I think that's something that right now is in the pipeline that we're really excited about.
Okay, thank you. I will go to another speaker, Joanna, because you represent an organization that helps to support immigrants for a job abroad. And you help them on many fronts, including providing psychological help. And Alexei mentioned also in the presentation that the psychological support and is very important, especially for those who fled from occupied territory. And you have a numerous project to support those refugees, even those fighting on the front. And how your organization support looks like right now, or how was at the beginning? Is it changed right now? But I'm sure it is.
As the war began, I already informed all of my partners, my medical partners. These was companies and NGOs, hospitals in Poland and Germany, because I'm actually I was active on the board between Germany and Poland, working with the government, German and Polish government. And after war began, I just decided overnight, I'm going to focus on this topic. And I wrote a letter at night to all of my partners and asked them, what can we do? And in the morning, I get the answer from all of them. And all of them told me, Joanna, we are with you. What can we do? And for example, some of the Jewish hospital in Berlin give me all of the goods they had. And we organized next day the first transport, the first truck to Ukraine. And at this time, I spoke with a lot of doctors and from the field. And they just said, Joanna, we need everything. And I just discovered we cannot do everything because we just send them things they are not going to be able to discard, to do to the right places. So we just We just send them some like a single-use operation sets for the field. That was the biggest donation we did at the beginning. And then I just spoke with a lot of doctors, and I knew it. They needed support with a couple, like with rehabilitation, psychologists. So at the COVID time, we are just like did some like virtual clinic with online treatment. So we used this virtual clinic to treat patients from Ukraine or women with children here in Poland to help them, to give them like psychological help. We are already on the project with the Cancer Institute in Kiev. How can we bring the people to Poland to offer them rehabilitation? Not only trauma rehabilitation, but the psychology rehabilitation. So you're thinking about some project which is going to take a couple days, or maybe a week or 2 weeks, for the people to get them here and give them a little bit more power to come back. Because they need to have a break. Without them, they cannot work 24 hours a day. So that's what I'm doing.
Yes. So you use your connections in Germany and in other countries like Switzerland and US just to transform your main key work to the Ukrainians. And for me, it was interesting that when I was when I was reading about you, that actually you just made like Polish people and cooperate with German on the medical issue, and I've even made a joke that you are that person that just create no boundaries between Poland and Germany in Frankfurt in Oder. So maybe this time you will create another like bridge between Poland, Germany, and Ukraine, in this, especially in this psychological part of helping and aiding the Ukrainians and dealing with the war.
We also have a Ukraine there living already in Germany, but all of them need psychologist help. So we are thinking about the project, how can we support the people mentally?
Yeah.
Because that's important too.
Yeah, because when we think about the health, we don't think about the psychological part at the beginning. First, we think about the trauma. When we think about the war, we think about the bleeding and massive trauma problems, especially at the front and in the occupied areas. We don't think that also people who maybe do not live just next to the front, but they still influenced by the war, greatly influenced by the war. They also need to have a support just to function normally, just to stay and just deal with the environment they got.
And it's just the only one thing I want to say, which I think is very important, the mental support of the medics on the front.
Yeah, because the war creates the chaos, and then you have to adjust to this chaos, and you need to find a way to deal with it without, fearing about leaving your home, and so that's why those people need to have that support you organize. Thank you. And the last but not least, personal question to Chris. And Chris, you're working on a different stuff. You are chief operating manager of projects like Rescue Glass. So maybe that will be the answer for the e-medicine, e-health we were start talking about. So the device that can help to help people by using the glass and providing first aid even in the remote areas. But what I want to focus here, I want to focus on the other project that you work as a volunteer in Polish rescue organization where we work together about bringing ambulances to the Ukraine. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, first of all, I feel like all of the speakers already gave answers to many important questions, so I feel like I need to go with something fresh.
Yeah.
So the project we've been doing as a Polish rescue organization was ambulances for Ukraine. because it's really worth mentioning that I'm already engaged in some other activities. Like we have one of the biggest training centers for first aid in Europe. Plus, we have a medical equipment shop. So combining it all together, I feel like we can have huge impact on what is going on. We've been doing some talking here together with Katya and Alexander about actually quite the same project we want to work on. Because what we've done in our research is our friends that are EMTs, paramedics all over the world, they are aiding organizations like European Union, OSCE, and we're doing some work in Africa. They also work in Ukraine, and in that intel we got is there's a huge lack of actually access to public health care. There's a huge lack of ambulances. The cars that are actually in Ukraine, they're overworked. The crew is overworked. They have older cars, they need to repair them, although they get destroyed, but still, you need to think of something new. So we thought that providing cars that are smaller, easy to operate, they don't need access to staff that is already trained for. Because with the regular ambulance, you need to prepare people to use that properly. Without that, there is no use for that. Same goes with AED device. Not many doctors that can do the real surgery can operate an EAD device. Quite simple, right? But there is no answer to that. So we thought of, let's go with not only providing ambulances, but let's go with full training of people. So my other project is, because actually I've conducted a series of tests in states, now in Poland and back in Ukraine after the outbreak of war, because we've done a device, it's called the Rescue Glass. And this is a thing that's going to be a real game changer. Because what is going on, long story short, I don't want to bother you with that, but you basically put on the glasses, you get in touch with paramedic, EMT, or doctor back in the operational center, and he gives you step-by-step instructions. There were no critical errors. All of the medical units we've been cooperating with, they confirm the readiness of the usage. So I'm going to go with more talking in the evening, and hopefully, from the information I received for actually the past few days, we're going to get those devices to Ukraine. So the access to public health care or first responders would be massive. Because the idea about it is, you don't have many paramedics everywhere. When you get those devices within ambulances, when the ambulance arrives on the scene of an accident, whatever, they distribute it among civilians, and those people, without prior knowledge or training in medicine, they can provide a really excellent first aid. So that's going to have a huge impact. Hopefully, we're going to get all other things going as well. If you have any further questions, I'm really happy to get the answers for that. And hopefully, we're going to cooperate on that and all other matters that are super important.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so that maybe I will start asking some general questions to all of you, because you already mentioned that we have a winter, or winter is coming very soon this month. Of course, we know, Oleksiy mentioned the temperature, that is a problem without heating system, and it's quite easy to destroy the infrastructure for Russians. It's like a normal tactic that you use during the war. So when we think about that, not only generators are needed, what are the other needs you have to think about just to secure civilians and civilians in Ukraine, because we face the winter. And Svetlana mentioned that you think about another winter as well, as looking for the future. So how will the health service look like this winter? You mentioned generators, but how did you prepare already for the winter?
I think winter already has arrived in Ukraine.
Sorry, that Polish perspective. We have like less severe winter than you have.
So to the current winter in question, I don't think we have much space for maneuver anymore, right? So, but naturally we have to think, how can our patients be less dependent on actually going to the physical facilities in Ukraine to receive the medical care. Given that there is a acute shortage of electricity, we have to also somehow down the demand on the medical facilities in Ukraine, because they simply will not be able to meet the same demand they were meeting before the war, when we had the infrastructure intact. And so here, in my perspective, the healthcare system of Ukraine has to learn to innovate the same way our army innovated, with very limited resources, short time frames, and brief agile innovation cycles, to come up with a different way to operate in these new circumstances. Well, healthcare has to assume that sort of innovative mindset as well. I think our hospitals will continue and be a very attractive target for bombing. They're huge traditional facilities. So in my perspective, there are some additional facilities that need to be created in the spaces that are less obvious than these large facilities. For example, and this is just an idea, an underground metro stations, they are a shelter for many people during the bombing. Certainly some of the medical services could be provided in this sort of like less obvious locations. Then there is an emergency care that you have to receive where you are or where the closest facility is, but there is an elective care, right? And perhaps the elective medical care can be moved to the locations that are further away from the front line, perhaps on the Polish border, where people can travel to receive this less urgent type of care. Then I think Chris mentioned the telehealth. Well, we certainly have to get onto that adoption curve of remote medicine, and the service that doesn't require a physical visit to the facility. This is unavoidable for the circumstances of Ukraine right now.
You mentioned also blankets, that you brought blankets. That's obvious solution for the winter. Do you think that there is like a great need for those blankets? I mean, like this first aid blankets or like normal, typical blankets, just to secure, the civilians and patients, I mean.
Well, in the medical facilities, blankets are probably more relevant to those regions that were deoccupied very recently. So, like in our context, we were only delivering them to Mykolaiv,
okay,
to multiple facilities in Mykolaiv. They didn't have enough of them, and they didn't have yet the generators. So this kind of like quick solution was valuable for them. But the blankets are more required, perhaps, in the collective shelters that are multiple of them around Ukraine, and that are a place for the most vulnerable people, the people that unfortunately do not have the funds to rent an apartment, or they don't have relatives in Poland to go to. So they're stuck in Ukraine in a facility that was not fit for winter, ever fit for winter. And they remain there in oftentimes suboptimal circumstances. They're more prone to contract diseases because it's colder there. And yes, in those locations, most certainly they require warm clothes, blankets, etc.
Okay, so now we have an idea what to collect and just how to support you. Okay.
Yeah, just to mention some of the partners that we're supporting with wool blankets. I mean, I think sometimes also innovation. The term is used for technology, but we're noticing that small partners in really rural areas are able to innovate on wood burners, wood stove, and so they've kind of developed their own model, and we're supporting grant work with them. Heating points, we're working with municipalities as well on setting up community heating points. But I'll also mention, and to Alexei's point about kind of bridging winterization and equipment, it's really important to kind of think through what type of equipment can be used in certain areas, especially if you don't have consistent power. And I think Institute of Emergency Medicine here in Poland works with telehealth hospitals in Ukraine, and we've supported grants on portable ultrasounds and training. So again, you need a power supply at some point. but they can go 6, 7, 8 hours without power
That's
to
true.
provide those health services. And another grant we have right now open is with portable incubators. So these are ways that you can kind of innovate around health services and bridge that long-term need for equipment that we find is hopefully going to be successful.
Okay, thank you. Alexei, how do you think about the winter? I mean, like as a ministry of health, because you mentioned generators, but we are talking about the heating and lack of heating power in hospitals. So what else can we do? Because we have here different organizations, different business partners, so everybody is interested in how to help you in that critical moment that is winter.
Yeah, and here we should think by models. What will happen if? And again, the worst model, if the whole electricity system and heating system will be destroyed. And in fact, it means that even people cannot call the emergency because there are no phone, internet, so full blackout. And what can we do together to allow people to have medical services? We got experience actually from our Kharkiv Oblast, where in some territory, even occupied territory, there are no electricity. And what happened that people go to the public places by bike or by foot and trying to call the emergencies. It means we need to set up some types of connection. Again, Starlinks, it's always perfect solutions, and medical system have around 1,000 Starlinks already, but definitely not enough. But the volunteers can bring some resources to a public places where can people go and call emergency. It could be again by car. So our strategy is to have emergency point everywhere where it's possible, but we will not cover everyone. So here the volunteers and other organizations could additionally support to be this bridge of communication between hospitals, between medical system and the patients, because we understand that number of heart attacks, strokes, and so on will now increasing. And we don't want to lose patients at home. We want to provide them medical care. Another layer of model when it's still now there are temporary problems with electricity, and as I told, the increasing number of generators will support conditions, and hospitals are ready to work in current condition. And but of course we have some requests on medicine, and it's data available on the Ministry of Health website, so you can always go there and check what type of medicine do we really need, because we don't need everything. Actually, sanitizer we got from EU countries, like tons of them. So no sanitizer and mask needed anymore. But there are some specific drugs really needed, and targetedly it will support support system. But I want to talk some about, we often talk about control area, but we still have uncontrolled area, occupied territory. And from government perspective, we are still paying salaries to the doctors and nurses, to the medical staff, and we will. Yeah. So it's our people, they provided services to our population. But Russia blocks all types of humanitarian corridors. And I want to give a message to all communities that we need to continue pushing them to open humanitarian corridors, because lots of people want to go to the controlled area, and it's a huge problem. Even if in some period of time people are able to have evacuation corridor, even we have a huge number of cases where this corridors was under attack. And all this data should be publicly discussed and presented of all types of, like from the ground to the high-level politician. It should be visible because people are struggling without medicine, and we don't know everything about occupied territory, and we're afraid that there are real humanitarian crises.
Okay, thank you. What kind of medicine do you need actually the most right now? Because you mentioned that you don't need sanitizers, and I think this is the result of COVID, that we could send you more sanitizers that you need actually. And what kind of medicine do you need the most right now? I mean, group of medicine, you don't have to give us names.
Yeah, in some cases it's pain reliever, but with like not Panadol, but something more stronger, like not some types of narcotics. Again, it's better to see the list. I don't want to mistake, but also drugs for rare diseases, of course, are needed. Actually, when we are talking about drugs in this period of war, most of them are very expensive because in the first months, we ask for almost for everything, because some of our huge warehouses were destroyed. And in the first 3 months, it takes we and our pharmaceutical business and international partners have introduced lots of resources to have some basic medicine on the market. Now it's available, and the request in some specific drugs and highly cost drugs.
Okay. I see that you are prepared to answer also my question, because you deal with the drugs, I mean, like with the rare disease, and you know what is the most needed.
Yes, I just would like to echo what Alexei just said regarding medicines. First of all, we should send what is needed, and this is the key information for all that would like to help. We need to ask firstly. Well, when it comes to medicines which are, let's say, usually used in first aid, but also medicines that are very specialized one, like for rare diseases. The key is here to convince the industry to enter Ukraine, to not be afraid to be in Ukraine. This is a problem because those companies are somehow afraid of taking the risk of course, it is a risk, but they are afraid that the medicines may be misused. I mean, I can guarantee you that those medicines won't be misused when it comes to rare diseases, because the system is functioning and was functioning before the war, and now it's a pretty good condition. The patients are receiving medicines in some areas, even though there are some problems, and we were, for example, as a foundation, delivering some specialized medicines like immunoglobulins, but now the situation is better, so the system is capable of delivering medicines to patients with rare diseases, with chronic conditions as well. So it's good to be in Ukraine and help those patients. So by being on the Ukrainian market, you can help patients. And even better if you offer those medicines as a compassionate use. This is a tool used by many pharmaceutical companies around the world when they are entering some markets. They are offering some free therapy for a group of patients. Why can't you use it in Ukraine to offer free of charge therapy for patients in Ukraine for a specific period of time, let's say for a year, for how long it would be needed during the war, and maybe then start business negotiations. But now offering medicines as a compassionate use for patients with rare diseases is a solution. It's used by pharmaceutical companies in other countries as a business tool. Now you can use it as a humanitarian tool in Ukraine. So if anybody from the industry is here, just please check the list of medicines of the Ministry of Health and maybe consider entering Ukraine and helping those patients, because you can help them by providing medicines. Now they can, and by that they can stay home, they don't have to leave the country and seek for medical care in the European Union. And just one side comment here, we did a survey among the patients with rare diseases who left Ukraine, and there are places in many countries of the European Union, and about 93% of them declared that they would like to go back to Ukraine as soon as possible. So also they will need this treatment at home after the war.
Okay, you start like final remarks already for me. Actually, I was going to ask some other question, but actually you answered those questions about regular healthcare now in Ukraine, because you're divided. So we could see that it's different in this occupied area and not occupied, and how the people deal on the daily basis with that problem, and especially in that time when time matters the most. I mean, like heart diseases, I know, strokes and other problems, because they do not disappear because of the war. They are still there, and people have to deal with them when they need it. So any final remarks about the health system? What would you like to achieve in this time right now, and something that it's like a long-term aim, target for you? We can start by one, or as you wish. Just free.
There's certainly a one for me, because as the people lack access to public health care, and they lack actually people that are first responders in every area of Ukraine, because it's everywhere in the world, but in Ukraine especially, I feel like it's a great idea to start building a network of people that are fully trained, and they could provide training for others. So this would increase the numbers. So basically, as you train properly at one person, it can go like as far as he can go back to where he was and start training all others. So you can build a system like that. And that's the cheapest solution, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll echo the comments about the importance of training. And I think for a donor, it's recognizing what the needs are, listening to partners, being responsive, and also providing funds to support operational costs, right? I think it's really important to provide salaries when possible on projects. That serves the benefit of other organizations working with that partner. And so I think that's something in the long term, in addition to training, providing equipment and training for that equipment, maintenance costs, also providing operational support to organizations so that they can continue to do the work, not only for the project they're supporting with your funds, but other organizations' funds as well.
Okay, thank you. Any other remarks? Rachel? No?
I think from my side, I expect that we are able to generate more humanitarian innovation in the coming year. And besides this short-sighted emergency response, we are capable to elevate our planning for at least more long-term type of perspective. And I don't mean like 5-year perspective, but that we think about the next year's winter right now, because this emergency response that we are all carrying out collectively right now, it creates a number of other risks for the country. I don't believe we can replace traditional electric infrastructure with generators. It makes our country, for example, susceptible to fuel crisis. So if we have the situation that we had back in summer when diesel was not possible to find anywhere, well, generators do not run without diesel. What do we do then when we don't have power stations and we also don't have diesel to power our generators? So this is a massive risk for us that we need to be breaking our heads and thinking, how do we plan around those risks, and what are the new solutions that we are able to introduce to minimize those risks and minimize dependencies on one single solution.
Any other remarks?
When we are talking about long-term needs, I want to address one important thing. It's coordination. Because number of resources that are available now for Ukraine, it's actually very limited. And yeah, we see hundreds of donors and NGO and humanitarian project, and it's all great. But it will not enough for Ukraine. That means how we use these resources should be very efficiency. And without proper coordination across donor sector, across government, across regional, it's impossible to achieve such result. And actually, quite openly, we have a bad experience starting 2015 when lots of resources go to the Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast. Because of lack of coordination, resources was specified only on some points, and it doesn't allow to people to get good quality of services. And having such experience now, we again with the different international partners creating platforms how the resources could be coordinated. It's a health cluster of Ukraine that coordinated by WHO. It's national platform. We are on constant communication with Oblast Health Administration and ask donors to speak with them before implement something. It's very important message for long-term development because now we are using resources. We think, yes, we need to deliver hundreds of generators. But where it will go, it's very important because duplication or triplication of humanitarian support will not allow to get good health services for the patients. We think we should think started from the patient, who will get what they need, and then coordinate our support.
Yes, I think that's the best sum up we could have. We should coordinate our aid and just spend it wisely. And as Svetlana mentioned, innovation is the key right now, just to solve based on the experience you have right now, what will be next in a long-term health service in Ukraine. Okay, I think we still have a few minutes for questions, if there are any from the audience. Do you have any questions to our panelists? Okay, so there is a microphone.
Дякую, Наталія Тулінова, Національна агенція гуманітарної допомоги здоров'я. Ми
Okay, wait. That's a technical issue.
Наталія Тулінова, Національна агенція гуманітарної допомоги здоров'я. Ми спеціалізуємось на медичній допомозі, на аналітиці потреб для лікарень, на логістиці, справедливому розподілі.
Analytics of medical needs of hospitals, logistics, and we also cooperate with partners like you. We have a deputy minister here, so I'd like to ask a question in the presence of foreign donors. Because, well, I'm very curious. I'd like to discuss the issue of how we can help you, or what are the obstacles in your activity, in humanitarian aid, so that we can join forces, so we can do whatever we can much faster, much better, much more efficiently.
Who is going to answer that question from our panelists? That's a tough question.
Maybe I can start.
Okay.
Well, we all need coordination, and I am saying this as a representative of an NGO. And well, in the beginning of the war, there was chaos. Now it needs to be structurized, and I'm glad that Ukrainian state is doing something for this. So we do really need coordination, and I'm looking forward to learn more about those platforms so that we can cooperate. So, well, we need it. I mean, I can say from our NGO, we'll be happy to also get information not only from other NGOs, but also from the state. And don't forget that the state is the main provider of humanitarian aid to Ukraine in the end. Still, not any NGOs, but the state. And also, the state needs macroeconomical aid to fulfill those gaps so well. If we speak about coordination, I'm the first to work like this and to structurize our activities.
Rachel?
I think for those of us who lived and worked in Ukraine, we know that corruption used to be a very, very big problem. And I've been told from many Ukrainian friends that this problem will not be tolerated anymore. It is the end. Finally, we are finished. But I think all Ukrainian people can work on this, not accept this anymore.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, one more thing to add, because what I've been doing for, I feel like 1 month ago, I've donated, and actually I've cooperated in donation for soldiers on the front line. And what we did, we've sent the uniforms and underwear for them, because the winter was coming. And what I saw that was super problematic. Many people try to do the same kind of stuff, and they gathering funds, and it's not coordinated at all. And what broke my will was that I could not have funds for the goal we had. And some other companies started doing the same thing. If we coordinated, we would get a lot more things for cheaper price. So that ruined that, because we would have like few hundred soldiers more adopted by us. So that's the issue about it. Stop doing the same stuff. Coordinate it and get real help.
Okay. So maybe that other woman.
Thank you very much, Andrea Vessa. I'm the Safeguarding Advisor for AmeriCares. So my question is to those who've had experience in humanitarian responses before. This is critical. Medical aid, everybody from every aspect of society is coming to help, right? Corporate, NGOs, foundations, everybody's there. Do you feel we're following humanitarian principles, or are we behind in understanding, having a core, set of principles to coordinate us in our thinking to do this safely and to do this in a neutral fashion and so on? So are we lagging in understanding what a humanitarian response is?
Please answer the founding question. Wait.
Thank you for that question, Andrea. Yeah, I mean, I think right now a lot of the humanitarian principles come up seemingly on a daily basis. And I think it's important for organizations, especially the larger international organizations, to really think critically about those, to really sensitize staff to those, because right now, in some of the areas, right, the access for humanitarian organizations, especially in occupied territories, can be challenging. If there's a risk to them to work there, that needs to be discussed with that partner. There needs to be an openness, willingness to communicate honestly and transparently. But the do no harm principle comes up, I think, for us at AmeriCares, and what we're really focused on, I think, in this response is safeguarding. It's really protecting our partners, the communities that our partners work with, against essentially the support that we're giving. Make sure we're not doing harm in communities, and sensitizing, again, our own staff, those communities, to be able to raise issues if they see that, to better improve our programming, not only here, but elsewhere in the world. And so, again, the safeguarding component of it is critically, critically important, especially when we're talking about a lot of the protection work. Some of the grants that we support go to, gender-based violence and things like that, as well as our MHPSS work. So thank you for raising that, but safeguarding is an important component of the work, and I think should be streamlined in all areas of the work, whether it's relevant for protection or medicines and increasing access to medical services.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a microphone to yeah, okay, you've already have it, okay.
Hi, my name is Nazik. I'm with Project Hope, and I'm based here in Poland. We have a huge team inside Ukraine that is working very closely with the Ministry of Health. But I wanted to talk about coordination here. So we have huge coordination bodies inside of Ukraine. OCHA is one of them, and their mission is the coordination of humanitarian assistance within the country. We have the WHO, who works directly with the Ministry of Health and coordinates all the medical needs in the country. So just for all of you to know, and I'm sure some of you here know, that coordination is key. And like the representative of the ministry is saying, they have a website that is actually very good, and it provides a lot of information. So yes, go to that. Our team is coordinating very closely with the Ministry of Health and with also hospitals. So whenever we do medical donations, we do a lot of medical donations, medical trainings, training of nurses, social workers. So most of that is coordinated through the Ministry of Health. Another point that I want to bring up, they talked about the need for blankets this season. So I was like really scared when you said that, because I don't want people to go collecting blankets and ship them to Ukraine. Coordination is key. Most of the time, I highly advocate for by donating money to the organization. Don't send stuff. Always donate to the organization that is working on that particular commodity, and let them ship it in a professional way, because they will coordinate with organizations inside Ukraine that can distribute these items. We don't want a pile of stuff sitting somewhere right now. So just wanted to make that point about the blankets and other stuff. Thank you.
Okay, there was like a woman at the back. Okay, this blouse, yeah.
Thank you. Blandine Bruyère, International Medical Corp. I'm working in the mental health and psychosocial support sector. I have actually two questions, but maybe we can discuss about psychotropics needs in the different hospital and area. But I wanted to react to what you were saying, stop doing the same thing. And immediately I thought, yes, we all want to stop doing the same thing. The issue is that we need to advocate again and again to our donors, because they want us to provide the exact same services everywhere. So this is also an issue that we need, again, to discuss and to coordinate. It's not only our INGOs, cluster, government are coordinating at the local level or national level, it's also how we push our donor to coordinate between them which one is going to fund what and where. Because when we have 2-3 NGOs receiving the money from the same donor, asking us to do the same thing in the same area, of course at the end we will do the same again and again and again. So I'm really inviting all the responsible, the head of, to discuss with their donor and to push for this. Just my reaction. Thank you.
Okay, very last question.
Good morning. My name is Mariana Zawiska. I am from the Collective Leadership Institute, a German-based organization. We are not engaged into humanitarian aid, but we are professionally doing services for building multi-stakeholder collaborations. And in 2017, we were engaged into working with the healthcare decentralization reform in Ukraine, with the champions of the healthcare decentralization reform on local level. And I guess my question will go to Alexei, but also to other panelists, if you have any ideas. In terms of supporting local communities in a long run, and we know that local communities all over Ukraine are overburdened in terms of services they need to provide to internally displaced people, local community members who are all affected by the war in different sense. So in terms of topics or directions that should be supported on the community level in a long run, what is what you can envision right now. Definitely there will be mental health support, but maybe some other topics in the healthcare system on the community level that could be supported in the long run.
I think, yeah, very briefly, we are limited by time.
Oh, we have less than 1 minute, so my quick reflection. Because local community are the owners of their healthcare facilities, and it's important now to develop on them long-term care, rehabilitation, and mental health. All 3 blocks are lacking across Ukraine, so if you have quick reflection, you can focus on these 3 topics, and it will be very important for local communities.
Okay, thank you for all your questions. We don't have much time, more time to answer all the questions, but I think we answered the most urgent one. Okay, thank you for your knowledge. Thank you for the answers. I hope we answer some questions that people were interested, how to help you, how to coordinate that help wisely, and how to just secure basic, even health system in Ukraine. Once again, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to have you here, and hopefully we will see in a better time next time. Thank you.